This is Truthful Manipulation, where truth is the truth and reality is made real and clear to understand. I'm Dave Kelsey, and I'm here today with my co-host, H. Daniel Mujahid. Today on Truthful Manipulation, Dave and Daniel take on a powerful question. How do we rebuild after the fire? In After the Fire, the Reconstruction of the American Soul, they break down truth, accountability, moral courage, and what real reconstruction looks like in leadership, community, and everyday life. And if this message resonates, go deeper with the book, Truthful Manipulation, A Roadmap to Live By. Tune in to Truthful Manipulation Podcast and get the book. Learn to recognize manipulation, resist it, and lead with integrity. Now back to today's show. On this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation, we're going to entitle the episode called After the Fire, the Reconstruction of the American Soul. And what do we mean by that? There comes a moment after every fire when the flames are gone and the noise died down and all of that's left is the damage. That's where it feels like America is right now, not just politically, but spiritually.
That's interesting that you have this as an emphasis, Dave, today's show, because for many people who hopefully will end up listening to this podcast who are Muslim anyway, this is a month called Ramadan, which is a month of fasting, but it's the fasting is Ramadan is considered to be the month of a burning away, the heat, the fire. And so if this is the fire, if this is the process that we're in now in America, in the world, you are asking us to think about what it means when this period of fire burning is over.
Well, Daniel, let's think about this for just a minute, because when we think about fire, we think about how it destroys things and leaves a lot of destruction. But we also forget that fire does a lot of other things. Let's say a fire in a forge. Look what it'll do to steel. It'll turn steel into a sword, where if you didn't have the fire to be able to heat that metal to a certain temperature, you would never be able to get that sharp edge on the sword that you get, because it was tried and tested by fire. Does that make sense?
Well, listeners, this is Truthful Manipulation. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Dave. And today we're going to talk about the reconstruction of the American soul. And what's that mean and what's that require? This isn't just something that the government's going to have to do. We've got a problem today with a truth issue, a character issue, a leadership issue. And how do we correct that?
Well, one of the biggest mistakes, Dave, that people make is thinking that this only happens in politics. It doesn't. It happens in families, in the businesses, in our friendships, in the churches, the mosques, the synagogue, schools, anywhere. Fear and control replaces truth and accountability.
Well, that's right, Daniel, because the fire spreads, but the fire spreads when truth becomes negotiable. And that's what's happened here over the course of the last few years. Truth has become negotiable. It's become an opinion. It's not something that stands, but you and I both know the truth is the truth. You can try to sugarcoat it. You can try to manipulate it however you want, but there's still only one truth.
Well, then when we say reconstruction of the American soul, we need to take a look at what we mean by this. And And let's talk about it in plain terms, Dave.
Well, yeah, what we mean by that is we're talking about rebuilding the moral infrastructure that makes a free society work. And how we do that is we have to do it through truth, through trust, through character, through accountability, and through courage. You can't run a healthy country if nobody believes the words that you're saying.
No, 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 no. Right, that right there, Dave. That's key. This is America. We shouldn't be about the business of just whining and carrying arguments. Everybody knows what's going on here. It should be about us restoring those conditions that make trust possible again.
Well, we have to not just make trust, Daniel. We have to make honesty fashionable one more time, because Reconstruction can't begin with just telling the truth about the damage. We have to see that language was weaponized. We have to know that half truths were used as strategy. And we have to know that emotional framing has replaced honest conversation. And until we
Let's
recognize
start.
those, we're not
Mhm.
going to be able to correct those actions.
Yes, let's start with that first step, Dave. That thing on honesty. And now you can't rebuild what you refuse to name, so let's call that honesty.
People like to feel righteous while they're still manipulating, don't they? That's one of the
Hmm.
most dangerous forms of deception, when the person using it thinks that they're still the good guy.
Hmm.
So for our
Uh,
listeners, we need you to think about, where in my life am I minimizing damage because the truth is uncomfortable? Or am I excusing manipulation because it helps my side?
we've gotten used to half truths, and that's dangerous because we can feel justified in the half truth, but it only lasts so long.
Half truths can't stand in the daylight. They can only lurk in the shadows. But we have to be careful, and we have to be careful when we do a reconstruction, because reconstruction's not revenge. And we've got to keep that in mind. And I have to keep that in mind, because I see people doing things that I'd really like to get revenge against them. And that's not how we need to go about things. If we want to do it properly, we have to follow proper procedures. But this is where most people lose the plot. They confuse reconstruction with retaliation. Did you hear that?
Well, yeah, that's some good point, and it's understandable, Dave. When they feel betrayed, they want payback.
Yeah, I know. If revenge comes the strategy, all we do is rotate who gets burned, or who gets to burn the house down. Doesn't change the fact that the building's on fire. It just changes who's actually setting it.
Now, that's another powerful point, Dave, because a lot of people, a lot of Americans, they think justice means not being humble. That it means that you've been humiliated.
It doesn't. Real accountability is about proportion, standards, and consequences, not score settling. Reconstruction is not about becoming more ruthless than the people you oppose.
Okay, so if that's the case, well, what is it about then?
Restoring what makes freedom possible. You have to follow truth you can trust, leadership you can question, accountability that fits the offense, and citizens who care more about responsibility than applause.
That that's acceptable, Dave. I think the difference between a nation healing and a nation just changing classrooms is exactly the point you're making. Let's talk about something people, don't always want to hear. And this will not be something that gives you this top-down feeling, but something that's relevant to the point of rebuilding, Dave.
Well, you're right,
Leadership.
Daniel. Leadership matters, laws matter, institutions matter, but the American soul's not rebuilt in Washington. It's rebuilt in ordinary decisions that we make in our everyday life.
Yeah, I agree. But I think we get troubled in America in terms of what happens when we get angry about these things, I think.
Well, we've got to curtail our tempers, Daniel. That's one of the biggest issues that's gone on is we've seen politicians in particular throw temper tantrums after temper tantrums instead of listening to what the people actually want and need. Americans are not nasty people. Americans, as a general rule, are not cruel individuals. And we look forward to these people's falsehoods being brought into the light of day, but it's up to people to recognize them. It's up to people to teach.
I think whether a leader tells the whole truth or just part of the truth, there is an accountability that has been missing in America, as you say, Dave. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's been a lot of accountability that's missing in America, Daniel. I mean, think about it. At the very top, at the very top, at the very least, our fearless leader is protecting pedophiles. Now, think about what I'm saying to you. At the very least, and there's a good chance that he's involved. And you can't have Reconstruction unless you hold those that have been perpetrating the misinformation accountable for their deeds, because a parent teaches a child honesty even when it costs them something, but that's not what's being taught or not what's being followed out of the people in charge today.
Dear audience, listeners, I would suggest that this is where truthful manipulation really lives. It's not just about us having the ability to criticize publicly, but it's about who are we in our private discipline behind the scenes.
And what do we really stand for? We've seen this over and over again, and I actually was talking with somebody the other day, and I said to them, "Did you do understand why Trump hides behind the religious folks? Do you understand why he does that, Daniel?"
I have opinions. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, the reason that he hides behind the religious folks is the people in charge of the religions have had a propensity to protect pedophiles over the years. And because of that, you've got somebody that's extraordinarily corrupt, but they're using and they're saying Christian when it's as far from Christianity as it can become or be, because Christianity, real Christianity, does not ever agree with pedophilia.
Mm-hmm.
So in truthful manipulation, if we want to bring this Reconstruction back, We have to start doing it brick by brick, choice by choice, conversation by conversation, but they have to be done with the truth.
Well, is America short on discipline, moral courage? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying America is short on moral courage, but right now we have a lot of emotional reaction. But if we don't have the moral courage to stand up to the emotional reaction, we're not going to help correct the situation. America's not
Yeah.
short on emotion right now. We're drowning in emotion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What we
Now,
are short on, though, is we're short on disciplined moral courage, Daniel.
I got it.
It takes more than courage to repeat your tribe's script. It takes courage to tell the truth when your own side doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah. And it takes courage to reject manipulation, let's face it, especially for those of us who feel like the manipulation, we get a personal benefit out of it.
You know when it takes courage the most, though? It really takes courage to be fair when anger would get more applause. Because think about it today, anger gets more applause than fairness gets.
Yeah, this is where people get confused about influence. Influence is not really the enemy per se. Persuasion is not the enemy. Framing is not even the enemy, Dave.
You're right, Daniel. Influence without integrity is the enemy. When influence loses ethics, it becomes manipulation. And when manipulations become normalized, trust collapses. And that's where we are right now. We're in a phase where trust has collapsed. People don't believe most of what they're hearing because truth has been an opinion. And we've got to get beyond truth being opinion back to truth being part of courage. And courage is what we're going to need to get beyond this.
Now, listeners, here is an equivalency for the various aspects of our life as human beings that we'd like you to consider. They've called trust a cornerstone. Let's think of trust in terms of business. If you can't trust someone in business, that's everything, is it not? So trust in business, it has an equivalency for those of us who say and claim to be faith-based. That equivalency in faith is equivalent to the trust. If we are religious people or believers, we say we have faith in something. This is the same as what we mean when we say trust in business. This is the same as what we mean if we are educators or teachers when we say study. There is no education without study. Observation, science itself is study. You must study, observe, look. This equivalency for us as in our community, in our families, in our governmental order, in our federal and governmental administration, that equivalency is participation.
If this episode is making you reflect, here's the next step. Our book, Truthful Manipulation, A Roadmap to Live By, breaks down the difference between influence and control so you can lead, sell, parent, and partner with integrity, not games. And if you're new here, hit the follow on the Truthful Manipulation podcast for weekly conversations on spotting red flags, handling pressure, and choosing the truth, even when it costs you in the moment. Search Truthful Manipulation wherever you listen. Grab the book, and let's build credibility that lasts. Now, Back to the show.
If you are not governing that allows the human beings in your jurisdiction and your responsibility to feel they can participate, if you want to exclude them because of their color or their age or their sex, etc., or their religion, that participation that is being violated is equivalent to trust being violated, is equivalent to study being violated, is equivalent to faith being violated. So come on, America, shape up. Dave?
Daniel, what this is really about, let's talk about fire for a second. We know that fire can be extraordinarily destructive. Normally, anything in the path of a fire does not survive. But if we go back to nature and we go to a forest, and that forest has a lot of underbrush on it, and there's a thunder and lightning storm, and the forest catches on fire, and it burns thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of forest. That's not the end of the forest. That's what Reconstruction looks like. Because sometimes you have to burn everything down to start anew. And with that, I'm going to say to you, there are 5 things that we need to follow once we've set that fire, which the fire is set. The nation's on fire. We've burned it. But now it's up to us on how do we rebuild it. And this is how we do it. First off, we tell the truth in full, not just an edited version, not the version that protects your image, but the full truth. Number 2, refuse manipulative language. If you let words designated to dehumanize, inflame, shame, or control, stop. The method matters. Number 3, demand accountability with proportion. Justice matters, but vengeance dressed up as justice just creates the next cycle. And that's what we have to be careful of, that we're not getting retaliation. And 4th, we need to rebuild truth locally. We can start this at home, Daniel, with our family, with our team, in our business, in our community. Start where you actually have some influence.
I think when you're saying rebuild, Dave, when you're saying rebuild truth locally, you're saying trust. When you talk about that truth, is that right?
Yes.
You really are speaking to your trust. Yes.
Trust
go right ahead.
and truth are interchangeable, because if you don't tell the truth, you're not going to have trust. And without trust, it's hard to tell the truth. So those words are sort of interchangeable. And number 5, we need to reward integrity over charisma. Today, charisma has been rewarded because it moves crowd, but integrity builds nations. And we need to rebuild our nation.
I think that's amazing that this discussion comes during this month of Ramadan, this month which means fire, the heat of getting to the point where the human being can return to its original mode, its original soul, its original nature, So the fire itself, it may, what we've gone through in America, all of this pain that we've experienced, Americans, in this last year, and in the world too, it may just be revealing what was weak about our relationships with each other as human beings. It might be just revealing what was hollow artificial. It might just be revealing, what cannot hold up under pressure, these false lies,
Well, Daniel, think about
ideas.
this. Think about this. The last thing I talked about was reward over charisma. This is huge. And the reason this is huge is we've confused confidence with character for far too long. And now we're living with the consequences.
Yes, good point, Dave. I think that when you say character, it doesn't mean something that's optional. The character is something that must be a part of who we are as a human being. It's like ethics. Really, ethics, they don't become outdated because, like leadership without integrity is just manipulation without a better branding, Dave.
Well, Daniel, back to the fire. Fire destroys, but it also reveals. It reveals what was weak, what was hollow, what won't hold under pressure. It can actually be a gift if we're honest enough to learn from it. And right now, let's hope that we're learning from our mistakes, because we need to rebuild the soul of America, and we need to rebuild it not through better branding, but through better character, through better ethics, through better integrity, through truth, through understanding, through acceptance. And so what do we say to you? After the fire, we got a choice. We can fight over the ashes, or we can rebuild what matters. The reconstruction starts closer than people think. It starts with your words, your standards, your decision, and your courage.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation.
If you'd like to comment on this week's episode, please get a hold of us at truthfulmanipulation@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your comments. Pick up a copy of our book, Truthful Manipulation, A Roadmap to Live By. It'll help you see these manipulations in your life. Keep your eyes peeled. Hopefully, we'll start this reconstruction process together, because we have nowhere to go up from the ashes. And it's up to us to rebuild and take it back the American way. Thank you very much for listening this week.